two, one. All right, guys, assalamu alaikum. This is a podcast about some things. Don't forget the space. I am your host, GEO and co-founder of the podcast, Aman Khalid. As always, I am joined today by my co-host, and it's a 2 live crew tonight. So, it might be the 3 live crew soon, but we don't know. AJ is incoming, but I got my right hand man with me, Coach Corey Lawson. What's up, dude?
My right hand is my go-to.
Hey man, and we got a good podcast today. There's been a lot of live sports happening, particularly the NBA. But we got some soccer. Arsenal won the FA Cup, so shout out to the Gunners. You know how we do. But this podcast again is just going to be about basketball because that's what's really going on. So obviously we've had some takes in the past that in the past 3 days have gone a little bit astray, and some of them have skyrocketed for sure. Devin Booker takes, so Michael Porter Jr. takes downgrading for me. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to recap all of the NBA bubble. But before we do that, let me just mention our social medias. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, all the good stuff, YouTube's at AWAS Things. Or on AWASThings _. You can also check out our website at awebsiteaboutsomethings.com. We're going to have some new articles, content, whenever we feel like putting it out. So check that out soon. But with no further ado, let's get into it. The NBA restart. It has been a fun time, man. It has been so fun. How have you been enjoying these?
Oh my God.
Just the restart.
And this sounds crazy. I don't think I've been this invested in NBA games since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Since I was middle school aged, watching basketball every night. I'm watching games every single day. Since the restart, there hasn't been one day where I haven't watched at least one game. And that's different. That's not normal for me.
Yeah, man. I'm going to say, this is the most NBA I've ever watched, period. Straight up. Yeah. I don't think I've ever watched more NBA than these past 3 days. And it's, straight up from 11. We've never had this much NBA, first off.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's from 11 a.m. to basically 8 p.m. Depending on your time zone. But
yeah, and it's a national TV game every night, either ESPN or TNT, every night.
And they're great national TV games, right? We saw Blazers Rockets last night, which was a fantastic game. Even if it wasn't the two necessarily best teams, it was super competitive, and that's obviously been the most fun thing for me. I think about the bubble is that all of these games have been competitive. They've been playoff atmosphere, and we kind of touched on a few things. I think 2 weeks ago, before the restart happened. Just kind of little things the floor being too big or the lines being too small for the floor. I think that's actually had an impact. So I just want to give a shout out to that theory. But I do think a lot of players have been stepping on the out of bounds lines and just, your Ray Allen theory has definitely come
to that was my thing back then, was just that big Ray Allen shot. We never remember that. He never looked down at the floor.
Yeah.
You just knew where the three-point line was, and you don't have that with these games.
I do want to get your take on some of these guys' fitness level now that you've seen it all. And you're a fitness guy.
Can I point out the first thing I've noticed that I haven't seen in the NBA in a long time?
Please.
Is it just me, or is there a lot more missed dunks than normal? I feel like every game there's somebody missing a dunk, and I'm like
I don't know.
I don't know.
Listen, I don't think I've noticed that. I've definitely not noticed that, but maybe that's something.
Maybe it's just the games that I've watched, but every game there's always somebody misses a dunk, uncontested, and I'm like, yo.
Do you have one in mind?
Yeah. Well, one happened today. I think that Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown today missed a dunk. Yep.
Yeah, there's also been some really good posters. I remember Justin Anderson's on Giannis. Bro, I don't know why Giannis keeps getting dunked on all the time. I feel like he has a highlight every other week of him getting dunked on.
Oh God.
And the Bucks
maybe it's the long arms. If he swings and misses, there's just a lot of space.
Yeah, well, he tries. He tries really hard to get those blocks. That's one thing about getting post-rise.
Bingo. Same for Paul George.
Yeah,
same for Paul George. Yeah, same for Paul George.
We're gonna get into the Clippers and the Bucks in a second.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were about to say something?
Well, I think too, from just a fitness standpoint, I think it's the guys are watching their minutes, and I don't have the exact numbers on it, but I don't feel like LeBron's playing anywhere near 40 minutes. I don't think Anthony Davis is. I don't think a lot of these guys are. And even last night with the Rockets, albeit with, there was foul trouble, but Harden and Westbrook, there's no way they played more than 35 minutes last night. So I kind of get the sense, too, that a lot of teams are trying to ease their stars back into it as best they can.
Yeah, and I think you forgot even like the biggest one with the Bucks yesterday. I don't know. You kind of broke up there a little bit, but the Bucks just straight up benched Giannis, Middleton, and a bunch of other guys for like a whole half against the Nets, and they ended up losing. Yeah.
Well, so they have the one seat locked up, right?
Yeah. So they don't have to be playing for. Or they don't actually. Sorry, they should like theoretically they'll get it locked up, and they could have locked it up with that win, but they're like 5.5 games ahead of the Raptors, so it shouldn't be too hard to lock it up. So they don't really have to play for much. But good thing you did mention playing and kind of the stakes of the playoffs. I do want to kind of recap and get into each conference and kind of the stakes at hand and kind of just discuss your takes and predictions. We'll kind of just go through it all. So let's start with the Western Conference because I think that's probably the less muddy of the two, although they're both pretty muddy and they're both pretty similar, honestly, in terms of, whoa. All right, we got a special guest in the building. It's the 3LC today. Okay, welcome, AJ. We were just talking about the Western Conference. I'm about to get into it. So the Western Conference is a little bit muddy right now.
Hey, guys, what's up?
What's up, dude? And so the 1 and 2 seeds are basically locked up, right? Like the Lakers is set as the 1. The Clippers are basically the 2 seed now, bearing any, crazy changes, like if they blow a few more games in Denver, wins a few more games, but seems unlikely. So I think right now we're probably going to be seeing a 1-2 LA, 1-2 LA City matchup or whatever. And then 3 through 6 is a little bit less clear. All those teams are gonna be in 3 through 6: Utah, Denver, Houston, Oklahoma City, but they're each like 2.5 games within each other. So
I know
it's gonna be. I don't know. So for me, I don't think any of these guys have any stakes at all. Like they can experiment with their lineups at this point, and honestly, like these next 4 or 5 games for these guys are really just about kind of figuring out their rotations for the playoffs. But what do you guys think?
agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
So, but that's ultimately how the West is kind of looking right now, with the 7th being, the Mavericks pretty handily in there. And then the 8th seed is very interesting right now, obviously. That's probably the thing we're going to have to talk about the most. But before we get into this, let me just give you my
I'm looking at the rankings and I'm like, why is there such a giant?
Okay, well, you have to let me talk about my rankings, man. You can't
Not your rankings. I'm talking about the actual standings, seedings.
Oh, the standings. Okay, yeah.
There's my fault. The standings, not rankings. The standings. Like, why is Portland so far behind Dallas? And I don't know. I mean, we talked.
You explained it to us, so you tell us why Portland's so behind Dallas. Come on now.
I'm just like, it just trips me out that they're like 10 games between 7 and 8. Like that's just trippy to me. Like,
all right, we're gonna talk about Portland. We're gonna get into Portland when we talk about the 8th seed. But let me just give you guys my Western Conference rankings, and then you guys can dissect it because obviously there's a lot of homer bias in this. So let's get into it. All right, in the West, number 1 for me right now, the Rockets. Think they're the best team right now. It's tough. It's between them and the Lakers. The Lakers probably should be the 1, but I'm a homer, so I'm going to give it to the Rockets. That's the only reason. Number 2, I said Lakers. 3 is the Clippers right now, despite going 1 and 2. They've been pretty tough in these games, but they just haven't been able to come away with the victories, and that really tests their chemistry. 4, 5, 6, Denver, Utah, Oklahoma City. 7 is Dallas. And the 8th for me is Portland. I think they're the best out of the the 8th seeds. So let's kind of just get into it.
Yeah, they're definitely the best.
So, question, is this rankings in terms of just the games we've seen so far or your prospect to win a championship?
I think it's just my prospect to win a championship or to come out of the West. I think
come out of the West, got you. So you think Houston's number 1?
I think to come out of the West right now. Yeah.
I'm going to set that aside for a second. I want to speak on Portland. I honestly think outside of LA, and Houston, I think with Dame, CJ, Nurkic, Melo, they've got a squad. So
Gary Trent.
I think eight's pretty low.
Say his name.
Gary Trent Jr. You're right, Gary Trent Jr. So I think the record could be kind of disguising us a little bit. I think Portland's the fourth best team in the West.
Ooh, that's a hot
fourth.
Fourth best team. Whoa.
He said fourth.
Guys,
this guy.
I already listed it out for you. I don't know why you're just now reacting. So I already said, look, I got LA, Houston, and then Portland is my number 4 team right now.
So fuck Dallas.
In the West.
Fuck the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Fuck the Jazz.
Yeah.
Wow.
Look, I'll put it this way. I think Portland has a better roster than Dallas, and every other team you just said. I trust Dame in a big moment more than whoever their best player is. So I trust Dame more than I trust Jokic. And who else did you say?
There's
Utah.
Utah, yeah. I trust Dame more than I trust Donovan. And end of the day, they got a better roster than Dallas. So yeah, I got Portland number 4.
Look, I actually don't know if that's that high of a take.
I don't think it is.
I'm gonna be honest. Like I thought about it, and I've been thinking a lot about I've been thinking about how high I should put Portland. And for me, it was like, okay, 8 is the reasonable way, but I could have put them as high as 4. The top 3 were obviously pretty set for me. It's obviously Rockets, Lakers, Clippers.
Top 3, no disagreement. Top 3.
Denver has played pretty well, so it's hard to take them out of it. But Portland has looked really good, like really tough too. And so let's just talk about kind of the 4 teams that have a chance at the 8th seed. So right now the Grizzlies are kind of set right now in the 8th seed, but they've dropped their last 4 games. So it's looking tough. It's looking like they're gonna have to scrap on. Obviously they took a tough loss to New Orleans with Zion dominating them in the end, and then they took another tough loss to the Spurs with DeRozan hitting that pump fake for the winner, drawing the foul. And then an OT loss against the Blazers. So the Grizzlies, they're hanging on by a thread, and they lost JJJ. Is there any chance that the Grizzlies hold on or not?
They're done.
No. Hell no.
First of all, one of the spots is going to Portland. That's just first.
Yeah.
Of all.
There's only one spot. There's only one spot. Okay.
Well.
So we have,
you know what I'm saying?
3-team race.
Barring something catastrophic happening, it's either Portland or the Pelicans.
So we have a 3-team race. And okay, hold on. You said Portland and who?
You already know what's going on.
All right.
What
about my boy
Pelicans?
What about my boy D-Book in Phoenix, bro? Come on,
stop all that.
Put some respect on
that. That was cool. It was a cool little moment, but let's get back to real conversations here.
Hey, they're only 2.5 out. They're 2.5 out. No, they are 2.5 out. Sorry, I was reading that number wrong. But I don't know. Phoenix has looked really good. They haven't played. They beat the Clippers last night with a huge game winner with D-Book. And I don't know. I've just come out really impressed with them. I don't know what really else to say about Phoenix.
I know. We know you like D-Book, but it was one shot.
And my MVP of the bubble prediction is coming slightly true. It could come true. We're going to talk about TJ Warren in a second. Right.
TJ Warren.
D-Book or James Harden.
Why are you more excited about him playing the nasty Suns versus the real matchup, the real beef, the real storyline, TJ versus Jimmy? That's not only is that a real thing, that's a playoff matchup. All right. That's potentially 7 juicy games of Jimmy and TJ just going at it. Like, come on, guys. Have we forgotten what happened? Have we forgotten what happened in the first matchup?
To be fair, a lot of things have happened in 2020.
It was a long time. So are we just discrediting Phoenix? It's a 2-man race. You guys are just discrediting Phoenix?
For me, yes, Phoenix is out. Yeah, I still got my eyes on Portland, and then I would say San Antonio as well. That's the 2 that I'm most looking at.
Hey,
damn right.
San Antonio.
Ooh.
They're only one game behind Portland, two games behind the 8 spot.
I wasn't even including them in my race, to be honest. So you're gonna have to give us some notes on San Antonio because I wasn't even ready to talk about them.
Yeah.
How do we feel about the Blazers' tough schedule though? Like they got Denver, Clippers.
I mean, it's good for them. It's good for them. They need it because they haven't played together.
Bingo.
In this, you know what I'm saying, this lineup, you know, they need the test. So everybody else can chill, but they can't. Like, they need the battle test, you know?
And I think AJ makes a good point, too, about everyone else being able to chill. Is even though it's a tough schedule, a lot of those teams have playoff spots locked up already. So when they play Dallas, you know, second to last game, is Dallas going to play Luka for 35-plus minutes? Probably not. When they play Brooklyn for the last game, you know, I don't even know who the hell is on Brooklyn to begin with, but they locked up their playoff spot today. So Portland could be in a situation these final 3 games where they're fighting for a playoff spot and the opponents are fighting to stay healthy.
Well, okay, so you say that, and the Grizzlies only have to play 4 games left, and they have to play Oklahoma City, one playoff seed locked up, right? They have it locked up. Toronto locked up. Boston locked up. Milwaukee locked up. So is there a chance that the Grizzlies could just sneak in with the 4 games and, you know, get some – I mean, how do we feel – I mean, the Blazers are clearly, I think, the
better team.
The best team out of those 5, right? Even out of the Pelicans, I would say the Pelicans are number 2, solely because they got BI and Zion doing some stuff. But the Blazers are by far the best team out of those 8, or for the race of the 8 seeds. So do we think the Blazers are good enough to overcome the difficulties in the scheduling?
I mean, who's going to beat them outside of the Clippers? Like, who are you that worried about?
I mean, I'm not really worried about them losing.
Anything can happen, man.
I'm just worried about teams like
have you seen their team
not paying attention.
I just watched the Lakers lose.
Yeah, but the Lakers have already the Lakers have locked up a number 1 seed, and they shot 5 for 30 from 3 tonight.
I'm just saying, flat games are flat games. It can happen anytime.
Can we talk about Carmelo Anthony for a second? I need to do it, guys.
I don't want to.
What do we have to say about him? What do we have to say about him?
I mean, the resident Debbie Downer, the pessimist of the podcast, I have to say something about Carmelo Anthony and the narratives.
What you got to say?
He's overrated. He's not that good right now. I don't think he played that well against the Rockets. He shot 5 for 14. He had a good last 2 to 3 minutes. You know, he can make a big shot when it's open. He misses some of them. He misses like half of them, I would say. So it's, you know, it's 50-50. He reminds me of an older Paul Pierce. That's what I would throw out.
Older Paul Pierce.
He reminds me of a guy who you don't really want on the court, but he can make a big bucket. So
that's just not true.
That's so golly, Mike. I'm just like the taste in my mouth is bitter. Like just hearing that. Yeah,
you can say it, but you're not. I mean,
so here,
look, just because he didn't fit in our Rocket small ball system and we made him look like he was washed, like I never bought into that. I never saw that. All I saw was a veteran that needs to be a veteran on a team. Now, let me say. Blazers are definitely using way more of him than I thought they should. Like I don't know if he comes off the bench yet or not. I don't know if Nurkic is back in the lineup or anything, but I think they like to take Whiteside off the bench. So I'm not sure how they're doing it with their starting lineup.
Yeah, I think Melo's actually starting and Whiteside.
Which I don't really necessarily agree with.
So
but,
I thought he was coming off the bench last night.
No,
that's what I'm saying. I think Terry's doing some experimentation.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but the lineup, I think it was Lillard, McCollum, Anthony, Collins, Nurkic, right? I think they went Zach Collins and Nurkic with the 2 power forwards and then put Melo at the 3. And then Hassan.
Either way, that rotation is so good for him with the Zach, with the Whiteside.
I'm not saying it's not good for him. I'm not saying he can't be okay in it.
If he's in that, then Melo is good. Like he's good. He's gonna give you good minutes. All I care about is
giving you good minutes. I think he's just giving you average minutes, and I don't know if that's good minutes. I think he's giving you serviceable minutes. And the way we're talking about Melo, okay, sorry, I'm interrupting. Go ahead.
No, you're good. Well, to me, the value of Melo, if you want to say NBA Twitter is overrating him, I would agree. But I think once playoffs hit, Portland's going to use him off the bench, and his job is going to be, hey, there's going to be a moment when Dame and CJ both have to rest at the same time. They're going to need someone in the second unit who can get buckets. That's his job. That's his job.
I just don't know how good he is at that job anymore, if I'm being honest. Like,
and as long as they don't use him for anything beyond that.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, you kind of broke up a little. I just don't know how good he is going to be at that job, right? Like, obviously he's fit into the role a little bit better than he did with the Rockets. But for me, this guy is just, I don't know, he's lacked the awareness throughout his entire career that I just don't know if he's going to be that six man off the bench that you guys want. I don't know if he's necessarily going to buy into that. And so,
but hasn't he already been buying into it a little bit? Like,
he's a starter. He's definitely bought into his role in Portland.
Bingo, right.
I can't deny that, right? I can't deny that. He changed somewhat his mindset moving from Houston to Portland, so I'll give him that.
Yeah.
For me, I just don't know if the skills match anymore. Match our perception of Melo. And yeah, he's got a little nice jumper, a little nice mid-ranger, but it doesn't go in as often as you would like, as often as you would think first ballot Hall of Famer should go in, right? Like if you look at Melo today, you're not saying, oh, this guy was once a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think his game really translated into an old man game.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think at this age he shouldn't look like a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
but then
like
even when I watched last night's game, I felt like when he was isolating, he was getting really good looks. Now last night they were rimming out. They were rimming out last night. They weren't falling, but those same shots will fall. I feel like. I guess what I'm saying is when he isos,
he knows how to get his bucket.
He wants. Bingo.
Yes, sir.
That he wants.
Yeah, I don't know. I disagree. I don't think he's that good anymore. And
wait.
Mr. Debbie Downer.
What do you disagree with?
Let me talk first. I wasn't arguing that he should look like a first ballot Hall of Famer now. I'm saying he doesn't even look like a player who looks like a former first ballot Hall of Famer, a guy who used to play like that. He doesn't even look like that. At least Paul Pierce, when he played at the old age, you were like, oh yeah, this guy was good once.
I disagree. What? I'm looking at that guy like, damn, he's popping on, he's pulling that thing like what you call it?
Carmelo to me looks like
off the catch. He looks like he always has. Look, man, off the catch.
No,
I agree.
Very important component of his game.
Come on. Let me ask this.
He's looking good.
Come on, let me ask this. Let me ask this. Are you upset at the looks that he got, or are you upset that they just didn't go in? Because I felt like he was still getting his looks.
Oh, he gets great looks because of Dame and CJ and Nurkic. Of course, he gets great looks.
Even when they were off the court and he would isolate, he's still getting to the elbow and getting his looks.
I don't think so. He was 5 for 14, getting looks. I don't know if he was actually isolating and scoring. So you guys saying, yeah.
But again, that's why I asked the question. Are you just mad that they didn't go in? Because the looks were there.
100%. I just
okay,
don't
but
think
that's a different case. Like sometimes your shot's off.
Well, I don't think he can even create his bucket that much. I think Dame and CJ create a lot of his buckets now, which is okay, which is fair. But I'm saying even in that role, he's not even that great. I think he's an average player in that role, and he gets a lot of open looks. Look, I think he's about as average of a three-point shooter as PJ Tucker. I'm gonna be real there. I think he's about as good as a three-point shooter as PJ Tucker, and I think PJ Tucker makes a role for himself on the defensive end, something that Carmelo doesn't do. And so when I'm looking at Melo, I'm just like, all right, he hit a 3 once. A lot of guys can do that. A lot of guys can hit an open three. A lot of guys can, take a lot of shots and make some of them. But I don't know. That's just my pet peeve with Melo. I just don't like him.
The best part of this is I've always been the Melo hater of our group. And now it's like I'm the guy who has to defend Melo.
Oh no, I've always hated Melo. Hey, I've always hated Melo ever since he's scoring the Bulls for the Knicks. So my Melo hate is deep. Don't get me wrong.
Runs deep.
It runs deep, just like the LeBron hate. But yeah, I do. It is coming off as a hater. I can admit that I am coming off as a hater. So. Let me just clarify that. I am aware of my hatertude. So
I just don't know what the expectations are for Melo at this point in his career anyway. Like I think even Portland considers him to be their like 7th or 8th best player right now.
Look, I think Portland's using him perfectly. I think it's more about NBA's Twitter's reaction.
But that's what I
to
said.
Yeah. And that's mainly my pet peeve. But I also
Right.
don't think he's that good. But
Right,
my
and
main pet peeve
yeah.
is NBA narratives making him out to be like, oh, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. That to me just like is meaningless right now. I don't know. But I think we should move on.
Fine.
Sorry, you're breaking up a little bit, Corey. But let's move on to the Eastern Conference, where it's getting very interesting. First off, let's talk about the Bucks, who look like they suck. And yeah, I know I rhymed that, but they took one big loss to the true MVP, James Harden, and then they took another.
Has everybody watched the B-ball breakdown video of Giannis's jumper?
No.
All right, I'm gonna send it in the group chat. I would like for you guys to
okay.
Just so y'all can understand.
You've already sent it. You've already sent it in the group chat. We just haven't watched.
I'll send it again if I have to. I don't know, but
yeah. So
it's just tough to watch it. It's just tough to watch those knees, the way they buckle, the way his arms go out like this, the way his shot starts all the way out here, 1 foot in front of his face. Like,
who is this? Giannis?
Yes, it's Giannis. It's just so painful to watch because I know what I saw his first year in the league, the same way Coach Nick saw it his first year in the league, and I was like, that's the reason why I was like, I'm a Bucks fan, because this is crazy what's going on right now. Like, he looks like KD, but he's killing you at the rim, and he just kept getting better and better and better. But then he was like, I mean, if y'all are going to let me in the rim, let me in the paint like this,
how do we even get onto a Giannis topic? Of course, AJ.
Well, we were talking about the Bucks.
Yeah, and somehow we get to Giannis. Get out of here. Get out of here, bro. Let me finish. Why do you keep interrupting me, bro? Stop talking. Okay. Anyway, before we got up to this odd Giannis tangent, the true MVP handed that guy the L. Okay, so who are we talking about? All right, anyway, the class of the East, the Raptors got a huge win over the Lakers. My number one team in the East, let's just be clear about that. Other news, Celtics and Heat battled it out for the third spot, so it's looking like the Heat are a little bit better than the Celtics because, they beat them and Bam looked really good. Phillies looked unimpressive. But, let's talk about the big one before we get into the Bucks. So I'm going to let AJ get into the Bucks and talk about Giannis or whatever. But let's talk about Indiana, bro, because that's what we need to talk about. You had some thoughts on TJ Warren. I have a lot of thoughts on TJ Warren because, first off, let me admit, it's a podcast first. Actually, I think I did it last week, but it's a podcast first this time. I was wrong, okay? I was wrong about TJ Warren. I was blatantly wrong. It's not anywhere public, so don't worry. Like, I can't be putting on freezing cold takes or whatever. But when TJ Warren was coming out of college from North Carolina State, I remember watching him in the tournament and him missing 2 huge free throws against St. Louis, which cost me my bet. And from that moment on, I was an anti-TJ Warren person for life. And it was going really good for a while when he was with the Suns. Like, my TJ Warren hate was, skyrocketing. But unfortunately, I have to take my L here. It's a huge L. And this guy is looking like a professional bucket getter. He dropped, 53, 34, 32. And, I mean, they weren't against, great teams, but...
Still. That's the NBA 50.
Yeah.
That's the NBA 30.
9 for 12 from behind the arc.
Is it sustainable? Are we seeing TJ Warren saying, yo, this guy's an all-star? Or are we saying this is...
Nah, the thing is, before the bubble, I was noticing it because I was like, me naturally, I'm watching for all the threats against Giannis. And I'm checking also because Malcolm, my guy Malcolm, I'm looking out for him too. I'm seeing how he's doing over there. And then I seen TJ just become the star of the team on the cool. Like, they're just not talking about it, but his numbers is like, especially after the fight between him and Jimmy, I was like, who does this guy think he is fighting against Jimmy? And then I looked at his numbers. I was like, oh shit, nah, this guy's actually averaging Jimmy's numbers. Like, he's out here hooping for real.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, he actually locked up Jimmy that game, right? Like, he actually got into
it was a real hooping session out there.
Yeah. So, yeah, what about you, Corey? How do you feel about TJ?
I got to be honest, I haven't truly gotten to watch a full TJ game. I've only seen the highlights.
And that's
Now,
fair.
in
That's
the
fair.
highlights, it looked like he's doing boys up. But I
Yeah,
haven't
if I
gotten to
can
see a full
describe
game.
his game, if I can describe his game real brief, it would be like watching a more not that Kawhi's indecisive. It's just that it takes him like you can see him make the decision, if that makes sense. You can see Kawhi decide that he's gonna do what he's gonna do, and he still does it anyway. You can't stop
He's calculating.
him.
Right.
DJ is like, I'm doing the same move, I'm attacking the same areas, but I'm just doing it and it's going in.
Yeah.
Like he's off that elbow, you know that elbow.
He's a
it's not a shot, but it's like a.
He's a professional bucket getter. He's a professional, right? Like I feel like he's shortened his release a little bit. I don't know if that's a fact, but his jumper is looking like really quick and smooth and efficient.
Yeah.
So that's a help. But he's also got touch from like every other area. He's that like nice little floater. You mentioned that elbow jump.
Oh yeah.
And he uses his body and like his weight.
Yes, professional with it. He'll get you in prison easily, like he's Chris Paul.
Yeah, he's got really good balance. So, I mean, I don't know if it's sustainable. I don't think he's necessarily going to be an all-star, but
I think he's here to stay, bro. He's got the fundamentals.
Yeah, and so, I mean,
and he locks up. And that's where he really starts his game, is he locks up. That whole team is about locking up. That's where he starts getting confident, like, oh, you're not scoring on me. It's over for you.
Yeah, and you see a lot of guys in the league who start out as defensive players, use defense as an advantage to get better at offense, right? Like they take the momentum on the defensive end and get better in offense. And guys that I'm reminded of are like Kawhi, Jimmy. I think Matisse Thybulle might be like that soon. But just guys who use effort and hard work and then, just kind of build their offensive game back on the backs of their defense.
Yep.
Any thoughts, Corey?
Yeah, I agree totally with that. And everything you guys are describing sounds like just such an Indiana Pacer star. Oh, he plays good defense. Oh, he really gets after it. He plays really good defense.
Well, the thing about Indiana,
he plays good defense, and then he makes his mid-range jumpers from the elbow. That is the most Indiana Pacer thing I've probably ever heard.
Bro, you want to hear something else about Indiana though? That's even more Indiana. It's not about the star. It's about the team. It's about the team. It's about the roster. That's something an Indiana Pacers fan would say, right? It's about the roster. It's about the team. But this time it really is. They have 5 guys who are like all-star caliber players in Oladipo, Warren, Brogdon, Sabonis, and Turner. Turner's
like,
probably
that's a team.
I was gonna say, yeah, they have Turner off the bench, I believe.
No, and I mean he doesn't really fit with Sabonis, so he might get shipped. There's a lot of rumors saying he might leave sooner in the near future. But a guy I would really love to see on this team, and I was just like spitballing who could replace Miles Turner, is Rudy Gobert. Doesn't really fit in Utah, but I feel like they could use his rim presence, his defensive ability, and his passing ability. Honestly, he's a pretty good passing big. So, and they don't need him to be an offensive threat. They could just use him as a rim protector. So, I would love for
come here.
I would love for Gobert to be on the Pacers. That's pure barking. So now it's just me and Corey right now. But
yeah, he would be their modern day Roy Hibbert, wouldn't you say?
Oh God, let's not get into this. Corey is the Roy Hibbert stan of the group, I would say.
You gotta understand, I've been a Roy Hibbert fan since the Georgetown days when he had the mini fro. I wanted to grow the mini fro because of Roy Hibbert. My mom wouldn't let me though.
Damn! Shout out to Roy Hibbert, trendsetter.
That's right.
But that's basically the East. Indiana's probably the only real entertaining team, I would say, right now. Everyone else is kind of up and down. We kind of know what they are.
Well, when my Bucks get Bledsoe back, I think we'll get things right back on track with the progress. I mean, right now we're locked up with the number 1 seed, so. I guess right now we're just going to experiment with our second unit, see who can really be the person that goes out there, commands the offense, goes out there, creates looks for the team. George Hill's always giving us some good minutes, but Pat's also coming back. He's been out. DiVincenzo, he's in the starting lineup right now. Kind of trying to decide if we're going to keep Wesley in or D in. But right now, just doing a lot of mixing and matching with the lineups, and we'll definitely find that rhythm. And we had a tough loss today with the Nets. They definitely play hard. They're missing a lot of key players right now, but they play hard, and then as we're just reeling right now a little bit. 2 tough losses, but at the end of the day, the number 1 seed is locked in. We're gonna play well, and get things right back on track. And leave it at that. But any questions?
As Birdman said, are you done or are you finished? Okay. Because 2 nights ago, I saw James Harden lock up Giannis when it mattered most. First of all, second
honestly,
of all, I don't know what makes you think Toronto can't beat these guys. Second of all,
I don't want to talk about that.
I know you don't. You shouldn't want to talk about that.
And we gotta, before we get into our contenders and Toronto, because we're about to get into that second. Let me just give a quick note on the Sixers, who.
Oh, please don't. Just
one team who is not in this conversation at all. So yeah.
Okay,
one word. Suck. Okay. We'll move on. Sorry. Okay, we'll move on.
I still love you, Ben Simmons.
What is Elton Brand doing? Okay, I just need to talk about it. Why do they have 4 bigs who have all the same skill set? It's not just Embiid and Simmons. They also have Horford, and then they also have Tobias Harris. Why do they have 4 power forwards / centers? It doesn't make any. They're starting Shake Milton, bro.
Elton Brand said, "I need all of y'all."
The only way it makes any sense is if they are trade assets. That's the only way it makes sense. Is if Philly is sitting there saying, "Hey, you know what?
I don't know, man."
If Philly is sitting there saying, "Look, we'll be a playoff team until we can find the right deal on a trade," that's the only way it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
Bomani always says, if the GM or the coach that gets in charge of picking up players, they always want a player that reminds them of themselves.
That's right. That's right.
Look at Elton Brand.
Oh God.
Picking up all these dudes that play like him.
And considering what happened with the Sixers prior to Elton Brand with Jerry Colangelo and the whole burner situation, I don't think we even got any clarity on really what happened there. But we were really quick to brand Elton Brand the next genius, I guess. Next.
We?
Well, a lot of people in the media, NBA, Twitter, media, not we.
Gotcha.
I don't think we were talking about Elton Brand, honestly.
Yeah.
But, I think a lot of people are ready to call him, wow, he's, smart. And obviously it's well-deserved. But for me, it's until you do something substantial, we have to question every decision you make. And the guy gave out, he traded for Jimmy Butler, which didn't work out. He gave a big contract to Tobias Harris, hasn't worked out. He gave another big contract to Al Horford, hasn't worked out. So I don't know. I don't know what the Sixers are really doing. They have a lot of issues they need to fix. So they don't look like a contender. They don't even look like a threat to me, if I'm being honest. So that's enough on the Sixers. We don't have to talk about them anymore.
Way more worried about Celtics and Heat and Pacers.
We just gonna go ahead and
A few weeks ago, me and Corey kind of discussed our tiers for the bubble, right? I gave contenders, pre-contenders, pre-contenders. I forgot what the tiers were, to be honest. But I want to revisit my contender tiers with you guys because I think there has been a shift. I think there's an adjustment that needs to be made. And honestly, to much of AJ's demise, I think there's a new best team in the East. And the Raptors, for me, have been fantastic. I don't know what else really needs to be said. Lowry's been awesome. Siakam's been awesome. Fred Velvet's been awesome. One word on Fred Velvet. He's probably going to get a max contract, but I would really love to see him stay with the Raptors. I think he's the natural succession to Kyle Lowry, and I think he's a great player. I would love him on a lot of teams, but I think he's the type of player who needs to be in a great system.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I would really love to see him flourish in that system, kind of like Kyle Lowry did. Lowry was a really good player, but it wasn't until he came to Toronto that he really became the guy he is today.
Mm-hmm.
So I would really love to see that for Fred VanVleet. But aside from that, the defense is organized. Nick Nurse is awesome. And kind of going back from last week, my best 8 theory, the Raptors are really, kind of putting that out in the first 8 games, really going with an 8-man rotation, figuring out that chemistry, figuring out all that stuff. And I think that's really going to pay dividends. So for me, they're in the contender tier. I've added them, but what do you guys think?
I got to agree with that. I mean, they've already knocked off the Lakers. That has to count for something. And then B, Kyle Lowry is playing out of his mind, like you said. And then C, the defense is great. So for those three reasons alone, they've got to be in the contender bucket, especially when Milwaukee doesn't look that good.
Yeah. Do you guys see any weaknesses with them? Any matchup issues?
So my only concern with Toronto, and I'm an old school NBA fan, is do I trust their best player to get it done in the final 2 minutes? Do I trust Kyle Lowry if he's going up against a Kawhi, going up against a Giannis, going up against a Harden? That's my only concern is do I trust 2 minutes left tie game, is Lowry going to come through? I don't know.
Yeah. AJ?
I mean, honestly, the more, like I said, I don't like talking about the Raptors because the more I look at them, the more I analyze them. It's just they don't need that person. They had Kawhi, but Kawhi was honestly half himself. He had that hamstring issue.
That's not true.
He was there,
That's not true.
It wasn't he wasn't totally healthy. No, he got hurt. He got hurt in the playoffs.
Saying Kawhi was halfway there when he took over games.
That was just awesome Kawhi shit. What I'm saying is, they didn't even need him. They didn't even need him to be healthy. They still beat us, and he wasn't even healthy. That's my point.
AJ does have a point. He was hurt, but he was still Kawhi, I would say.
He was still Kawhi. Yes. And so my concern with Toronto is, again, do they have the guy to step up? Your counter cannot be, well, they had Kawhi last year. That's my exact point.
No, okay, well, let me rephrase. They had Kawhi that was hurt last year, and from what I saw, I didn't necessarily see him take over the way you did.
Did you watch the finals?
I saw the Raptors totally just wear down the Bucks. Every game after the third game that the Bucks won, it was just the Raptors just figured it out. Every game they just beat the Bucks. And that's what I feel like the Raptors do. They don't necessarily have that one star. I know it's a cliche, the team ball, the team wins and all that stuff, but they have a lot of good players. What I'm saying? And when they have a matchup that they know they can exploit, they're going to use that player. If they know your big is weak, surge, mark. There you go. If they know that you don't defend the paint, the perimeter well, okay, we're gonna spread it out. You know what I'm saying? Kyle, what's the guy? Powell, OG. They're all out there, and it's they know how to attack. They have quality players to attack every area of the ball.
Look, I get that. And I'm not denying that they might have used a team effort to beat Milwaukee, but the fact still remains Kawhi took over in the finals. You can't take that away. So sure, maybe in the East you can play team ball. That's all fun and dandy. But when it comes time to go play Houston, go play the Lakers, go play the Clippers, who's going to step up? That's the question that I have that remains.
Yeah, and I think you guys both make fantastic points, and obviously, I think you're both right actually. To AJ's point, I guess, and I'll kind of get into this with the Clippers later. I think the Raptors did a really good job of building a system that allowed Kawhi to almost succeed kind of as the guy, right? Nick Nurse almost built a system that allowed the other players to do exactly what they, do things well around Kawhi, which helped Kawhi a lot.
100%.
You got something a lot that's missing with the Clippers this season, but we'll get into that in a second. But you also have a point that they, in the playoffs, you do need a guy, right? You need a top 5, top 10 guy, at least a guy who can close. And they don't really have a guy who can close. Siakam is really good, but he's not necessarily the closer. And so it'll be interesting to see, right? They're going to, they could either – I think they could, really beat up a lot of the teams in the early rounds, I agree. But when it gets to the Bucks, I honestly think it's going to be a 7-game series, and the 7-game could either be a blowout with the Raptors, just taking roster to them and, taking their
Mhm.
depth to them and their system to them, or it could be the Bucks and, Giannis just taking over that game and nobody having an answer for
Mhm.
that. And so that's probably what it's
Well,
going to come down
I
to.
would like to add, or let you finish, but I'd like to add, I think that's part of the strength of the Raptors. You know what I'm saying? Kind of alluding to one of our previous conversations, is that their strength is like literally the fact that they attack you by committee. You know what I mean? Like they're not depending on the one person to make the play because they
Yeah.
know all 5 players will make the play that needs to be made.
So that sounds great. That sounds like kumbaya. But who's the last NBA champion? Who's the last NBA champion who didn't have a bona fide closer before the series even started? Who's the last champ you can name that didn't have a closer?
First one that comes to my mind is the Pistons, but
That was 2004.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
So that's my point.
but to be fair, most championship teams over the past 15 years have either included LeBron, Kobe, or Duncan. So it's like it's
Yeah,
hard
but
to it's hard to make that.
okay, but the Warriors were still there. You still had OKC, not OKC, sorry. You had the Warriors, you had the Mavericks with Dirk. So there have been other teams in the mix. You've had Boston in the mix as well. So all these teams had a closer. Boston had Paul Pierce. Dallas had Dirk. The Warriors had KD or Steph.
My one
So
semi counter to that, and it's
go
not
ahead.
even that great of a counter, I'll admit, but closers don't become closers until they close.
I disagree, though. So here's where I disagree. Maybe it's semantics, right? But every team I just named, they had a bona fide superstar before.
Well, I don't know if like the
Dirk was
Celtics.
a superstar. At the time, that year, KG finished third in MVP votes. That year.
Was he a closer? Was he the finisher? Was he some guy you trust him to hit the clutch shot at the end? I think it was more Paul Pierce or Ray Allen, but I mean, I'm not saying. Yeah, go ahead.
So I guess my point though just becomes, look, the Raptors don't have either. So if we say you need a closer, they don't have that. If we say you need a superstar, they don't have that either. So whether we think it's a closer or superstar is the common denominator, the Raptors are 0 for 2.
I would say they have a top 10 player. I don't know, superstar, qualification is a little bit gray, but Pascal Siakam is an All-NBA type player. So they do have a star, some guy who can carry the team if they need it. But I don't know if he's a closer necessarily. I don't know if he's in the last 4 minutes he's going to get you buckets. So that's my issue with that.
I don't know. I just think every champ we named before had at least one guy who it was like, hey, we need a bucket, go get us a bucket, right? I don't know if Toronto has that guy where it's like season's on the line, got to have it, get us a bucket. I don't know if Toronto has that guy on their team.
Hey, I wish I was feeling like you, Corey, but I don't. I feel scared of them guys, man.
But again, look, hey, if Toronto wants to be the exception, the first one since the 04 Pistons, I will tip my cap on this podcast. But we haven't seen a team like this do it since 2004.
Yeah. And that's an issue, right? Like it's for me, it's like we can look at precedent and say, yeah, like it's never happened and yeah, it's all good, but it won't happen until it happens. And so we don't know, but yeah, you're right. Like obviously history tells us you're going to need a closer, but we don't know. Right. So it could happen without a closer, and maybe their system just figures it out. But let's get into some other weaknesses with the contenders now that we're talking kind of about the Raptors and their weaknesses. The Rockets, I have a lot to say about them. Obviously, they've been great, this bubble, and we've seen a lot out of them. But there's a lot that, for me, I'm worried about. And I feel like AJ a little bit in the sense of the Bucks, because I'm just seeing things that, maybe other fans aren't seeing because they're not watching them as much and they're not getting as frustrated. But, simple things – not simple things, they're actually very complicated things, but simple things to me, saying them out loud, it's like Russell Westbrook's shot selection in the last 4 minutes of the game, or throughout the entire game, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
James Harden's shot selection in the last 4 minutes of the game, hitting open three-pointers, defensive rotations. I'm not, unlike Corey and a lot of everybody else, I'm not worried about rebounds with them. I understand it's an issue, but it's a trade-off for me. And so they'll give up rebounds for, steals and hustle plays and stuff like that. So I'm not too concerned about rebounds. I am a little bit more concerned about second chance points, but again, Rockets make up for that with turnovers and stuff. So yeah, what do you guys see about the Rockets?
So I'm going to give my rebuttal when it comes to rebounds. I think that, well, I'm actually going to wait till he gets back because I want him to hear it. Awesome. I just paused it until you got back.
Okay,
so I'll just start over. So I'm going to give my rebuttal when it comes to rebounds. If you want to argue that in the first 46, 45 minutes, run your analytics, run your calculations, your math, rebounds don't matter, I'm okay with that. The final 2-3 minutes of a game, you have to get defensive rebounds or you go home. And you can talk turnovers, but guess what? In the final 2 minutes, when you play against the Lakers, LeBron's not passing the ball anyway. Kawhi's not passing the ball anyway. So those turnovers aren't coming in the final 2 minutes. Now, you can rely on threes, but again, you might play great defense, but if you can't get a rebound, that other team gets the ball back, and that's going to bite you. We haven't seen a team – again, tell me one example in NBA history, a group that could not get defensive rebounds who won a championship. Just give me one and tell me how recent it was.
Well,
look, I mean, go ahead, Mark.
Well, my counter to that is that the Rockets are a unique case in NBA history. So you can't really point to NBA history and say the Rockets.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, no NBA team has ever done it, so we don't know either way.
Yeah,
that's my point. Is Houston fans? Houston is hoping that you guys are the first to ever do it this way, and I just say good luck.
Hey man, that's what they said about Moneyball too, bro.
And you know what? Billy Bean never won a championship.
But the Astros did. I had to whisper it. 2017 World Series champs.
So,
yeah, like my thing is like
again, look, I'm just saying, hey, 45 minutes. If you want to say calculators and analytics, I'm with you. Final 2 minutes, you got to get rebounds.
AJ?
NBA's always been that way.
Well, my thing is like, yeah, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen like this. You know what I mean? Like, it's not gonna happen any other way. You can't just because like, things start looking shaky, you want to go ahead and throw Tyson Chandler in the line. Like, it's not gonna happen. They're gonna ride this thing all the way out, and that's it.
I mean, I think.
I go ahead.
I think the Rockets are fine with that, though, right? Like, they don't want to play a center. They're okay with testing.
Yeah.
This is the whole point of it. They're willing to test. Daryl Morey thinks he's smarter than the NBA. And whether you agree or disagree, I mean, I personally agree because he's done, a lot of things that no other general manager could do. And he's changed the way teams manage, their teams. But yeah, so I mean, I believe in Morey. And I have
a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question. If Morey's got this math and these analytics, hey, that makes sense if you're blowing teams out. But they're not blowing teams out. And when it gets down to these final 1 or 2 minutes, they're in close games and they can't rebound. So
they can get steals. And they did get rebounds against the Bucks, and they got steals against the Bucks. I mean, one game they don't. I mean, we don't know. That's the whole experiment.
It is an experiment, and I get that. I guess my thing is, for me, it would make a lot more sense if they were winning these games by a substantial margin. But when you're tied up in the last 2 minutes, I'm like, I just don't know how much the analytics matter at that point.
Well, I think for the Rockets standpoint, you have to look at it from their roster this year, right? So were they going to be as good with Clint Capella playing center as opposed to Robert Covington playing small ball, or PJ Tucker playing small ball with Robert Covington, mixing around or whatever? And so for me, you have to look at it from that aspect, right? Morey said, look, I don't think we're winning the championship with Capella at the 5, regardless of what he gives us on rebounds, because we don't have the wing depth. I'm going to take my shot with Russell Westbrook and what we can do, and I'm going to see if this works. And I respect it, honestly, because –
that's fine. Yeah.
But,
go ahead. So then my question is, can't we say that maybe Morey made the right choice, but this will never win a championship this way? Can't both things be true?
I mean, I don't think you can say the second though until we've seen it or until we've seen it enough, right? This is the first time it's ever happened,
Yeah,
and we're
it's
seeing,
literally been months. It
and
hasn't
honestly,
even
we're
been
seeing that
season.
it can work, right? At some
In
degree,
the regular season.
at some degree, it can work, right? We're
In the
winning
regular
games.
season.
I mean, we're winning games,
Regular season. Agreed.
but that's the whole. I mean, we're gonna see, right?
Can't play playoffs all year.
Yeah, we're gonna see. You gotta play regular season games. and look, and to Maury's credit, and I've said this 2 podcasts ago. I'll say this every podcast. I think to Maury's credit, he built this team to honestly beat a team like the Warriors. He wanted to build a team with a lot of wing depth. He didn't care about centers because centers burnt him in those matchups.
A team that no longer exists.
And he wanted to build a team a team that no longer exists. But he wanted to build a team kind of like the Warriors, if I'm being honest. And I think he did.
So, I do give him sympathy because he tried to build a team to beat them. But this team is not like the Warriors. I disagree. The Warriors always had big guys who could get rebounds. They had Andrew Bogut. They had Zaza. They even had Draymond. They had guys in the final 2 minutes who can knuckle up and get rebounds when you have to have it. I don't agree with that comparison.
I mean, but in their prime, they went small. They went Draymond at the 5. They went
occasionally.
With they went with
they literally.
They had a few minutes with that lineup.
It was occasional. They weren't running. They were not running that for like 30 minutes.
The Hampton 5 was a rare, not a rare.
Go ahead.
They called it the death lineup for a reason. They deemed it the death lineup for a reason.
Can I tell you the reason?
Hampton 5, you mean?
Wait, can I tell you the reason? The reason it had a nickname. The reason it got a nickname is because the lineup was rare. Because it wasn't their regular lineup. That's why it got a nickname.
Yeah, well, they started at center, but the lineup worked when they played it.
Yeah, for 10 minutes a game.
And it works in that context. It works in the context of having that big and then switching to the small ball and killing them in the third quarter.
Just taking the logical next step, man. Kill the big. They just didn't take that next logical step, just like the Heat.
Because they already won 3.
Everyone went progress. And also, I would like to make the distinction. The death lineup was before the Hampton 5. The death lineup was
I agree.
Andre Iguodala,
it was still 10 minutes a game.
Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green.
I agree. Okay. It was still 5 minutes a game.
It was Hampton. The only reason they rebranded it as Hampton
5 minutes a game. It was the end. It was the closeouts of the game. They closed games out with those lineups. But I digress. Let's move on to the Lakers. Let's talk about their weaknesses because that's what I really want to talk about. Corey has had some issues with AD, so we'll let him talk about his theory around AD, which I disagree with. But I'm gonna let him, do his thing. And then
what an intro.
Sorry, dude. I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to give any spoilers, but go ahead. Just take it away, dude. I don't know.
Okay, so my beef with Anthony Davis, right? I understand it's only been 3 games, but here's what I've seen. The very first game, opening night, he had how many points in the fourth quarter? 0. 0 points fourth quarter. The second game of the season against Toronto, LeBron sits for 2 minutes in the fourth. Game is tied. Toronto goes on a 10-2 run in which Anthony Davis didn't even take a single shot. And if you think I'm going crazy, I think Anthony Davis actually agrees with me because in game 3, he took 17 shots in the first quarter. So I think he actually agrees with me and knows he has to go prove something. So my beef with AD has always been in the fourth quarter, can you really count on him? And throughout the game, will he consistently be aggressive enough? And if you think I'm wrong, again, he opened up game 3 shooting 17 freaking shots. He agrees with me, even if you don't.
I mean, I just don't agree with the take that that he shuts off in the fourth. I think it's more of a design thing to get LeBron the ball more than anything, a minutes design, a system design. When he was with the Pelicans, he was a very good fourth quarter player. So for me, yeah, I do agree with you to some extent. Like, obviously, I would like AD to have the ball more than LeBron because I think he's a little bit of a better player. But, I mean, I don't know. At this point of their careers, I just think he could.
He's got to prove it.
I think they should let him prove it, and that's my thing. But I agree with you, right?
I would. By the way, I would add too. It's not even just the points with Anthony Davis. It's also the fact that when you watch the games, you forget he's on the floor in the fourth quarters. You sit there and you're just like, man, are they going to put AD back in? Are they putting him back in? And you realize he's been on the court for the last 8 minutes. and he's just not touching the ball on offense. He's
Yeah.
setting screens and standing in the corner. So even if he's not going to get actual points, at
hollering for
least
the
be a
ball.
factor
I
and,
think
and demand the basketball. Thank you, AJ.
See, I disagree with that too, because I do think he impacts the game on the defensive end. And I know you guys don't like that in the fourth quarter. Obviously, it's just like you're a superstar player shouldn't just be playing defense in the fourth quarter.
It should be trying to win the game.
And they also didn't sign him just for defense. I'm gonna tell you that too.
But again, I do think a lot of it is a designed, right? Like it's a system design, and I think Frank Vogel probably needs to be a little bit better of a coach and tell these guys, look, AD needs more touches in the fourth. Let's design plays to get him touches, and let's see what he can do. So,
but what I don't get about that though is if you're a great player, demand the basketball. That's been the rule for every great player in NBA history. If you're that great, demand the basketball.
Well, you can't be that great when you have LeBron, man. Come on.
Still,
you can't just demand the basketball when you got LeBron on your team.
But here's the thing: is LeBron is not taking all the shots fourth quarter. I see Kuz taking shots. I see Caruso taking shots. I see Dion Waiters taking shots. And then B, the other night when LeBron sat, that was AD's chance to take over. And I just don't see it.
But my contention is you're not telling Bron, look, give me the ball. Bron is deciding what the offense is doing. You're not telling Bron, hey, give me the ball. You're not demanding anything out of LeBron James. That's my
only. I mean, if you could. If LeBron is seeing that you want it and then the matchup is favorable, he's going to give it to you.
I agree. And then B, if that's the case, if Anthony Davis can't convince LeBron that I'm a better option than Caruso and Kuz, then that proves my point overall to begin with.
Okay, that's a misperception. That's a misperception because
Why?
AD's obviously scoring more points than Kuz and Caruso in the fourth quarter. So let's not act like he's not the second option for the fourth quarter.
Statistically, is he scoring more in the fourth?
Statistically,
in the bubble? Yeah. In the bubble.
The bubble's been 3 games or 4 games. We're not going to talk about the bubble right now. Statistically, AD has scored more points in the fourth quarter than those guys this season. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. All I've said about AD is, hey, I see a trend in the first couple games. I hope he changes it because, I'm the resident Lakers fan in here. So I hope he changes it. But that's all I'm saying is I'm seeing a trend. And by the way, the same narrative of AD in the fourth quarter isn't unique to the bubble. People have been talking about this since he joined the Lakers.
Well,
so he's only now just proving it further. This isn't a new thing.
Okay, well, I disagree with that, but let's just move on because
0 points, 0 fourth quarter points opening night, only a few the second night. That sounds like proof.
Fair enough. I just want to touch on quickly one weakness I had for the Lakers, then we'll get on to the Clippers, and then we'll end this podcast with, a special topic that I don't want to spoil right now. So let's just talk about the Lakers. A weakness I have them was demonstrated in that Raptors game. It's just a team with a lot of structure and a lot of chemistry, honestly. More chemistry than them. I think they're a team that prides themselves on chemistry, prides themselves on energy, prides themselves on getting up the court, working hard, being, picking up their teammates, stuff like that. I think the Raptors are better than them at it, and it showed in that game, and it really messed with their rotations. It really messed with, everything in their whole game. So, possible bad matchups for the Lakers are teams like Milwaukee, Toronto, just something to look out for.
Yeah, I agree. And I honestly don't think – I changed my mind. I don't think LA is that good, the Lakers. I don't think they're – and here's my hot take for the night. I don't think LeBron is LeBron anymore. I don't think AD is going to take over in the fourth quarter. And now you're left with Kuz and Caruso. I don't know. If this is 2012, LeBron could carry this team to a championship. I don't think current LeBron can, and that's my fear. I don't think he has enough help in the West. I don't think he has enough help around him this year, especially losing Avery Bradley. Don't know what's happening with Rondo.
He's coming back, I think.
So I just don't think 2020 LeBron is enough to carry this roster. I don't think they're that good.
Yeah. Okay, let's end it. Let's end the contender talk with the team I took out of my contenders. They're my pre-contenders now. It's the Clippers, because these guys, for all of the talent they have, it just has not come together on the court. And for all the chemistry the Lakers have, it's the exact opposite of the Clippers. And it's weird because like you'll watch their games and they look good, and Paul George is kind of making plays and Kawhi's kind of making plays, but when it comes to the fourth quarter, it's like, I mean, they're still kind of making plays, but they're not making all of the plays or the plays at the right time. And then they just end up losing. And it's like, okay, well, Paul George gets shot over, buzzer beat over him. And then next week it's Kawhi, or next game is Kawhi, missed defensive assignment, or Kawhi getting shut down by LeBron. It's just like little things that these guys don't accomplish that championship teams need to accomplish.
Supposed to.
And so they look like a championship team on paper. But when you put it all together
for the game,
yeah, it's just they don't have it for me. The Raptors had it last year with Kawhi. They had a system that could make Kawhi.
Raptors have it this year still too.
And they might, but with Kawhi, they put that system around Kawhi. They built it. They knew they could win that championship, and they were ready from the get-go. They said, we're winning this shit. For the Clippers, it's like it's I don't know. They're like, we should win this, but are we? Can we? A lot is going, should we? Right? Like, it's just a lot of confusion around the Clippers right now. They're not locked in. That's my issue.
Can I make a hot take? Are we sure the West is tougher to win this year than the East is? I mean, the Bucks and the Raptors but no, hear me out. The Bucks and the Raptors seem like really tough teams to beat. The Clippers can't win games right now. The Lakers, they also, again, LeBron's not playing well. AD's inconsistent, and the Rockets can't rebound. So the best three teams of the West don't look that great. Or I should say the best three teams of the West all look very beatable. They all have a glaring weakness. All three of them, Lakers, Clippers, and Rockets. I don't know if the Bucks.
Two or three more teams.
I don't know if the Bucks. Okay, but here's the thing though: are we arguing which side has more good teams? I'm saying which is tougher to win the whole conference. So I'm looking at the Lakers, Bucks. I mean, I'm looking at the Lakers, the Clippers, and the Rockets. They all have glaring weaknesses. I don't know if the Bucks and Raptors have a glaring weakness to that degree.
Well, for me, the glaring weakness.
The Bucks do.
Yeah, for me, the glaring weakness for the Bucks is just guard depth, if I'm being honest. Like, they just don't have a good enough point guard to get them to the championship. Good enough playmaker. And Bledsoe's good. Good. But I saw him in the playoffs last year, and I did not believe.
They have depth at the guard position. It's not that's their issue. It's that they are – whatever Coach Bud, he has this philosophy that they're just going to give up open threes. Like, the Rockets' philosophy is take as many threes. He's like, give up as many open threes. It's so fucking weird and it's annoying. You know what I'm saying? But that's one big weakness. And then another big weakness is Giannis, late game Giannis. Late game Giannis is the biggest weakness. Late game Giannis is not – I haven't seen him. I've seen him rarely, 1 out of 5 if anything.
Yeah.
He just gets there, and all they got to do is put somebody that's 230, 240, solid muscle, and he's powerless.
Yep.
He's not going to put a good move on you. He's not going to take a good shot. You know what I'm saying?
Not going to J you up.
He's just going to flail. He's just going to try to power over you and then pass the ball the last second. You know what I mean? And
that's fair.
It kind of looks like a poor man's version of late game Braun.
That's where predictable offense gets you in trouble. It's when your toolbox is I have to get to the rim and the whole defense knows that gets you in trouble.
Yeah. You guys
it's too easy for him.
Yeah. Do you guys have any final thoughts on restart, the bubble, or any prediction on what's going to happen, going forward?
So I do want to ask, I mean, I go back to the West-East thing, is which team in the West would you bet your life on winning a championship this year? Like, is there anybody in the West you're just like confident, like, oh my God, this team's going to do it? I just don't.
I was going to say the Clippers before this all started because they had top paper. And, it's like chemistry is that like, we know it's a real thing, but it's like, how much can that come in the middle, in the fourth, how much can that come with playing and in such a short amount of time? But now we're seeing it. It's like, nah, it's not
coming.
If you're going to put a gun to my head, I'm going to say the Lakers, but that's only if you're going to put a gun to my head. If you're not going to put a gun to my head, I'm not going to give you an answer.
Honestly, I think that's really a vote of confidence for LeBron. It's like, hey, those guys have LeBron,
80.
so
it's just that they have 80 and LeBron. Like, you got to figure it. If you don't figure it out, it's going to be
It's gonna be so bad.
It's gonna be so bad.
I think that my two parting thoughts is although I sound like a Rockets hater, I think they are the most fun team in the bubble. They are the most entertaining team by far. And then B, all these games are so competitive. Yeah. That's my takeaway. Is all these games, these guys are scrapping and playing 48 minutes. So, and it's not even playoffs yet.
Yeah. All right, guys, let me just finish this podcast on the new topic that I thought of like 10 minutes before the podcast. I wanted to retake this word because a lot of people have been calling, me it, but a lot of, progressive people who have all these, good ideas, I would say. They call us social justice warriors. I want to take back that word. So this segment this week, and maybe it'll be a recurring thing, is the social justice warrior of the week. And I'm going to give it out to the WNBA and Sue Bird for what they did to the U.S. Senator Kelly Loeffler, okay? Let me just get into this. I know it doesn't really need to be said again, but the WNBA is always at the forefront of social justice issues, even more so than the NBA athletes. The women aren't only incredibly skilled and talented and fun to watch, but by and large, all of their athletes are way more socially conscious than any of the NBA athletes, including LeBron James, right? They're crazy. So they don't need my respect, but I'm giving it to them because they deserve it, and I just want to shout them out. First off, Ariel Powers, who kind of sunned Andre Iguodala for his misogyny on Twitter the other day, basically not calling her by her name, and then she called him out, and he made a whole fuss about it. But it was nice to see a WNBA player call out an NBA guy for kind of being a little bit misogynistic by calling her by her number and not her name. So I just want to shout her out real quick because that was pretty dope. But the main reason why I'm giving these guys the award this week is the WNBA's response to U.S. Senator Kelly Loeffler's typical Trumpian anti-Black Lives Matter stance, okay? So Kelly Loeffler, U.S. Senator Kelly Loeffler, who was appointed, I just want to make that noise. She wasn't elected. She was appointed by the governor, and she's a noted insider trader. She started insider trading during the pandemic. She made like $20 million in dollars in the stock market 2 days before the pandemic or something. So she's a terrible person, but she called out the WNBA for putting Black Lives Matter on their court and on their jerseys. And, she talked about cancel culture and all these things, basically saying, I'm a political outsider. We shouldn't have politics in sports. We should put the flag on the jersey, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people wanted the WNBA to get her out of ownership. But, the WNBA being a business, a corporation, said, we can't just take an owner out for no reason for her political beliefs or whatever. And that's fair, right? Kelly Loeffler is entitled to her beliefs. We may disagree very strongly with them, but she's entitled to feel the way she wants to feel, right? But we're entitled to respond the way we want to respond, and the WNBA did that perfectly. So in response, earlier this week, most WNBA players, it was a voluntary protest, decided to wear a black t-shirt that supported the opposition, the Democratic opposition to Kelly Loeffler this week. The shirts sported a slogan that said, "Vote Warnick," in favor of Raphael Warnick, the Democratic opponent to Kelly Loeffler. And I just want to give them a shout out because it was dope of them for taking a stand, telling people to go vote, and really being creative in the way they were going to oppose these ideas. And so I just want to give them a shout out because a lot of people, including me myself, will shout at people, be angry, do the typical left thing, and get a little bit irrational at times, to be honest. But the WNBA thought it through. They thought, how are we going to get Kelly Loeffler pissed off in a great manner? And so wearing that shirt did, and, and Kelly Loeffler obviously responded the same way that she did. And, I don't really want to give her much attention anymore because, she's nonsense or whatever. But yeah, I just wanted to shout out the WNBA real quick. And I also wanted to shout out
Shout out to them. Shout out to them.
Yeah. So, and also prayers for the Middle East and Beirut and stuff like that. So
That shit was crazy.
yeah, this podcast isn't just sports, but you know, I want to be a little bit socially aware too. So even if that was very convoluted or whatever, I thought I should say it. So something I'm gonna try, you know, in future podcasts or whatever. But yeah. Any thoughts, guys?
That explosion was crazy. Like 9/11 was bad. That makes 9/11 look like.
It looked
That
like Game of
explosion
Thrones.
was so crazy. Like it looked like a volcano.
It was just so
I don't
sudden.
even know how to describe it.
But prayers for the Middle East, man, for real.
Yeah, man. Prayers to Lebanon, dude.
Get educated, donate if you have to, whatever. But yeah, that's our podcast this week. Thank you guys for listening. As always, it's Coach Corey Fit with me, AJ Takeover. You guys can follow them on their social medias. Corey's also got Claw Athletics, so check that out. Also check out our website aboutsomethings.com. Sorry, my dog is, barking, so I got to end this podcast very quickly. You guys have any final thoughts? Hey, stop it.
Just ready for more basketball.
Yeah, he's telling us.
I pray that Giannis fixes his jumper. Everybody spam him and his family with that video from Coach Nick. He has to see it. It was so good. His rookie year, his jumper looked like he looked like KD. I don't want to say that frivolously, but when you watch it, that jumper was so smooth. It was so immaculate. He was catching it. He was shooting it off the catch. It's just so pop. And anyways, go ahead. My fault, Corey. You was gonna say something.
All I want is AD to shoot 20 shots a game. That's all I care about. He
What
does
about-
that.
What about Ben?
He
What
does
about Ben?
that.
How many shots does Ben need to take?
I'm just saying, AD does that. Lakers gonna be champions. but we need him to. We need him to take shots.
And I just want to mention somehow AJ is able to direct this podcast in a Giannis direction. So I just want to make that clear before we end the podcast. As always, somehow we get onto Giannis. But thank you guys for listening. As always, this is a podcast about something. And peace.